Hey, Mike. How did Mike Parker take that game? Can't hear him.
He said he's a former Duck. Does he like it on the inside, but can't show it?
How big is Jessup?
You're muted.
They wanted to announce it on the broadcast, but, typical OSU fashion, they keep it a secret.
Oh, he knew. Huh?
The rumor was out there. Everyone knew about this. I think they had a special meeting with the team.
Yeah.
And here's what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, what's going on, my friends? Now 3 o'clock, Chad here. Hope you're enjoying your Tuesday afternoon. Panthers owner David Tepper didn't give any reasons as to why he fired Frank Reich at his press conference today, but did say he's confident in the decision to select Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud in the draft. Panthers are 1-10. They play at Tampa Bay Sunday. Oregon and Washington Pac-12 title game Friday night in Las Vegas. Kickoff set for 5 on ABC. Oregon opened as a 7.5-point favorite. The line is up to 9.5. Both teams hoping for a spot in the college football playoff. And both Bo Nix and Michael Penix playing for a potential Heisman Trophy. Bama and Georgia from Atlanta at 1 o'clock on CBS. Georgia sits as a 6-point favorite. The Washington State Supreme Court granted a stay today, preventing OSU and WSU from having control of the conference until the court determines if they will hear the case. Contract terms have been released for Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. His deal, 7 years, starting at $7.25 million per year. Meanwhile, OSU AD Scott Barnes hopes to have a head coach by the week's end.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
To hold Trenton Gill. Kairos Santos 08. Snap. Right hash. Angle left. Santos the kick. Santos is good from 30 yards. And the Bears crawl back in front 12-10 over the Vikings.
First off, can't fumble. Need better ball security on that.
Jeremy Grant gets it into Brogdon. That'll do it. It's a Rip City winner. The Blazers come into Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and they knock off the Pacers 114-110 to get the victory.
The Lakers will dribble it across, and the 76ers are going to win this game by 46 points. Wow. Whoa, man. 138-94.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad starts now.
All right, Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday here on the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. We're going to give those away coming up at 3:45. We got a pair of tickets for the Utah game coming up at Moda Center on December 14th. Chris Burkhart's going to swing by in studio and join us at 4:20. We'll focus in on Oregon State and Jonathan Smith, his decision. We'll get a little roundtable talk on that. What's next for OSU? And then we'll talk about the college football playoff rankings, which will be revealed today coming up at 4 o'clock on ESPN. And our good friend Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, will stop by at 5 o'clock so we can talk some NFL. Huge games coming up this weekend. And we'll get his take on Championship Saturday in college football with Washington, Oregon, and, of course, Bama and Georgia. A lot of good things going on. Godfather, it's good to see you. I hope you had a beautiful long weekend with Thanksgiving. I did. I had a great little one-day trip down to Arizona to check out the football game, ASU and AZ, with my buddy Steve. Sunshine and 70 degrees. That was nice. And the only other thing that's changed since the last time I saw you is that the one spot on my body, which was on my behind, which could be a spider bite. It could be something. I'm not really sure what it is. I'm getting more spots on my body now. I've got a couple on my legs. I've got some on the lower back area. I've still got the mark on my behind. And so finally, with the encouragement from family members, I'm going to begrudgingly head over to the doctor when I'm done here with the show and ask them, what in the heck's going on here? I don't like going to Google and pulling up images and getting ideas of what it could be because I'm like, nah, none of this sounds good, so I'm just going to wait and hear what the doctor has to say. It sucks.
Well, I'll give you one piece of advice today.
Yes.
Don't touch me.
Dude, I am a disgusting mess right now.
Oh, gosh, Chad.
And then
No,
on top
seriously.
of that, my daughter has an upper respiratory infection. She's been sick for a couple of days, and then she woke up with double pink eye. So I just let her know, like, I texted her and said, look, I love you, but I'm coming nowhere near you for a while. Hope those antibiotics work quickly. So she's down and out. I don't know what's going on with my body, but I'm a mess, but I'm here and I'm ready because, dude, this football season is amazing, and I love college football. That's my number one right now. The Denver Broncos have won 5 straight. I feel like I'm reborn. There's a lot of good things going on in the sports world.
Yeah, that was right after. That started right after you disowned them, basically.
Yeah,
You
pretty
kinda
much.
remember you said, I'm done with them.
Yeah.
I'm done with them.
I was really bitter. I had the chance to go to Denver and watch that humiliating game against the Jets that they lost at home. And then I saw the follow-up performance where they put up 8 points in the Thursday night loss to Kansas City. So I was very bitter at the moment, but this turnaround and the play that they put together, I haven't had this much fun watching Bronco games for 8 years. So I'm loving it.
Good.
Sean Payton's doing a heck of a job. Russ is finding some redemption this year, but that went over the Browns. I called you and talked to you on Friday.
Yeah.
I did not think they were going to win that game because of the defense that they were facing. Most physical team, best defense, one of the best rushing attacks, and the Broncos went out there and bust them in the mouth, out-rushed them, and were the more physical team. I love that. That's the type of football I want to see. So props to them for getting 5 straight victories and now setting up a big game this weekend, Houston and Denver, and the winner is going to be in the prime driver's seat for an AFC wildcard spot. So
Yeah.
can't ask for more than that. But I want to start with this. I mentioned coming up at 4, we're going to have the college football playoff rankings that are going to be released. With what we saw this past weekend, Florida State won. They beat Florida with their backup quarterback, Rodemaker. Michigan got over on Ohio State again, and once again did so physically, which was terrific. We saw Oregon and Washington both get wins. What do you suspect will be the top 4 when it's released today?
Great question, Chad. I don't expect anything too drastic. I think you still have to, in spite of Michigan's victory over Ohio State, I think Georgia still has to be number 1. I wouldn't even consider anyone else, given the circumstances. 2-time defending champion. They never lose a game. Over a period of years, they don't lose games. And they're number 1. I would say Michigan 2. My rather probably biased rankings, Oregon 3rd. And
No, I'm asking you, what do you think the committee's going to do today?
Right. Oh, what the committee's going to do?
Yeah, and guarantee you Oregon won't be at 3.
No, the first 2 will be the same.
Yeah.
And then Washington will be 3. And Florida State will be 4.
All right. And the first team out will be?
Oregon.
Okay.
It
I
should
agree.
be not a drastic, pretty much the same as they've been, really.
The only 2 questions I have going into the rankings today ahead of Championship Saturday would be, what are they going to do with Georgia and Michigan? Michigan's win over Ohio State is a high-quality win, and they've dominated their competition this year. So I'm curious to see how much they value that win and what they'll do in regards to Georgia and Michigan. But if push comes to shove, I think the committee will put Georgia number one with the 3 straight weeks where they're able to take out Missouri, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. I think Georgia's 1, Michigan 2. Washington will move up to 3 based on Ohio State's loss, and Florida State will be number 4 because they got the win and they're unbeaten. So you're going to have those teams as your 4. I think Oregon undoubtedly will be number 5. What I don't know, in addition to Michigan and Georgia, is what they're going to do with Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is Ohio State will be ranked right after Oregon at number 6, followed by Texas and Alabama. That's how I think the rankings will be today, with this weekend providing solutions, hopefully, for the committee as things continue to play out. But that would be my guess today. Georgia, Michigan, Washington, Florida State, Oregon, followed by Ohio State, Texas, because they got the win over Alabama, and followed by Bama, who's got their shot at Georgia coming up on Saturday. I guess the other question, well, the doomsday scenario is still on the table, by the way, and I think Duck fans are aware of this. Oregon's a whopping 9.5-point favorite against Washington in the Pac-12 title game on Friday. That is a big number, but that's a different point. If the Ducks win, the Ducks are not in the clear. The Pac-12 is not in the clear if Oregon wins, because the committee could be faced with some really difficult choices if Alabama beats Georgia. Because then you've got Alabama, 1 loss with an SEC championship. Georgia's sitting there with 1 loss. And then you'll see what happens with Florida State and Texas if they both win and are sitting there, 1 undefeated and 1 with 1 loss in a conference championship and a win over Alabama. So that's the doomsday scenario.
For sure.
So for Oregon and Duck fans, you get the win on Friday night, then you can enjoy that for a moment and then wake up and get prepared for 1 o'clock on Saturday for the SEC title game. You clearly want Georgia to win, and you really would like to see Louisville take out Florida State in the ACC title game. If those things happen, then the pathway is clear no matter who wins out of the Pac-12. If Washington wins, they're in because they're undefeated.
Right.
But if Oregon wins, they're going to need some help.
So if Florida State would lose, Georgia wins, do you think there's any possibility at all Oregon and Washington both go? If it's a close game in the Pac-12 title game, Oregon wins by a field goal or by 1 point or something?
No.
Don't think so?
No, because they would put Texas in with 1 loss as a conference champ. They absolutely would. I think it's a possibility. Now, if Texas were to lose, then that could open up the door for Washington and Oregon.
Yeah.
It could. I just don't see that happening.
No.
I think the bigger question is, what's the committee going to do if they have to choose between a 1-loss Georgia without a conference title and Oregon, a 1-loss conference champ? I think that's a more intriguing question the committee is going to have to answer. Because we know if Alabama wins, they're in. Michigan's going to be in. If Florida State wins, they're in. What will the committee do? Are they going to take Georgia and move them from number 1 down to number 5 and put Oregon in? I doubt that.
No, I think their default position has always been that the Pac-12 doesn't matter all that much. They don't respect it like they do the Big Ten and the SEC.
Yeah, that's unquestionable. So that's kind of how I see it playing out. I think the rankings don't really matter today that much. I think the rest of the things that are going to play out between Friday and Saturday will tell us what to look for on Sunday when the selection committee gets together to name their 4 playoff teams. But if you're an Oregon fan, you got to beat Washington, and then you need Florida State to lose or Alabama to lose, and you're going to be fine. But if those 2 teams win, the committee is going to be faced with choices. And if you're Oregon, you don't want the committee to be looking at Georgia, Texas, and Oregon and having to make a choice. That's going to be tough.
Yeah.
If Alabama wins the conference championship, because a Bama win only strengthens Texas' standing. And keep in mind with Texas, they got one of the best strengths of schedule in the entire country right now. And that's going to bode well for them, because for Oregon, the only thing I can say about Oregon that's not good is their resume. They've had game control, which has been on their side. They've dominated competition over the last 5 weeks, but their strength of schedule is weak. And when you compare their resume up against someone like Texas or Alabama or Georgia, it's not going to look as good, and that's going to be an issue for the Pac-12. I think you know that, and I know that. I think Duck fans understand that as well.
Well, they got unlucky to a degree. They beat Utah soundly at Utah, but then Utah falls off a cliff, and all of a sudden that win over Utah it's not a top 25 win anymore.
Yeah. And I don't really put a lot of weight on that victory because they played a team that was decimated by injuries. If Cam Rising were playing and they had their tight end and they didn't have multiple injuries in the backfield and across the offensive line and on defense, then that's a big-time quality win on the road against a very difficult team to play in Utah, who had won the conference in back-to-back years. But if you look at the resume, what have they done? They have a win at Utah and a win at Texas Tech, and they lose the game to Washington. It's not great. They've dominated competition over the last 5 weeks, but those are games that they were supposed to win. So I think Duck fans are aware of that. Handle business against Washington and just hope that the doomsday scenario we just described is not going to pop out.
Yeah, now all of a sudden, 9.5-point favorites over Washington, who they lost to before, who has quality wins, strength of schedule, neutral site, and they're favored by so many points. If they only beat them by a touchdown, that may not look so good.
Yeah, Washington has the best resume of anyone in the entire top 25 with their wins. You know, it's unfortunate for Oregon that they didn't draw Arizona this year, and they got Arizona State, because it would have been nice if they could have played Arizona, who is a big-time college football team now, has played great this year, because that would have given them a chance at a true quality win.
Yeah.
So we'll see how things continue to shake out. But you're right. Before you worry about all the mess with the committee, you got to take care of business first on Friday against the undefeated Washington Huskies.
You do.
Gosh, that game's going to be good. You're going to be down there.
I'm going.
You heading out on Thursday?
I am, yeah. Got to give myself time on Friday, just not to have to rush around, get to the stadium in plenty of time. Because, Chad, I haven't seen a game in that stadium. I'm excited to do that.
All right. When we come back, do you have an issue with Jonathan Smith leaving for Michigan State? The Godfather does. I don't. And what's next for Oregon State as they look for a new coach? We'll get to that here on the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Trailblazer tickets coming up at 3:45. Rip City Radio is looking for photos of your children with Santa, not the smiling, successful photos, the other kind that you show your child melting down like a snowman in July. Submit your photo today at ripcityradio.com for your chance to win a Visa gift card just in time to do some holiday shopping. Enter today and good luck from Mountain Timber Market, Quantum Fiber, and Rip City Radio.
You're listening to the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad on 620 Rip City Radio. Brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
Hey, Godfather, I think I just sent some random person, our show prep. So they're going to get that picture and have no idea what the heck is going on.
Yeah, I see what you were talking about. Yeah, I got it now on your second try.
Yeah, I sent it to the wrong person. My bad. I was so distracted by the thought of having to go to the doctor tonight after work because I've got stuff growing on me and I don't know what it is. I just know that going to Google and searching what something could be and then reading a bunch of material, that's not good for a person like me because I'm like, well, what if it's that? That's a problem.
That's the bane of my wife's existence. People self-diagnosing on the internet. It's a bad deal.
I know. And then I looked at a couple of pictures and I'm like, well, that looks like exactly what it is. And then I pulled up the picture and I said, what is that? Oh, scabies. Yeah, that sounds nice.
God.
Just all sorts of things. Spider bites, scabies, bed bugs, you name it. I have no idea what's going on.
Do you keep your sheets clean? You do wash your
every
sheets?
week, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not, no.
Okay.
You should know by now, I'm a
checking.
very clean and neat and tidy person. And when I got home last night, I freaked out again, so I washed my sheets again. So they've been washed like twice in the last 2 days. I'm washing all my clothes because this other one popped up on the back of my leg, and I don't like the idea of something else, organism, living inside of any part of my body, in my skin, in my body. I don't like the thought of it. It just gives me the creepers, Godfather.
Well, as somebody working close to you, it gives me the creepers too because it could be very contagious. Those bugs might be jumping over here.
That's an interesting thought.
I don't like that idea. But have you changed your laundry detergent at all? Sometimes, that can...
It could be. Same thing.
Yeah.
Same. Once I find a product I like, I don't deviate.
Yeah.
I'm very brand loyal. I just do the same thing every day.
I know.
I'm as easy to read as a book, a simple
creature
book.
of habit.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And no, I'm not going to send pictures or hassle your wife. I know your wife's a doctor, but I'm one of the people that respects her off time.
Yeah.
And I thought about it last night. I was like, man, I don't want to go to the doctor. What if I'll just take a picture of my ass and send it to Nancy? And I thought, no, I'm not going to do that
Not
because
a picture of your ass.
But
no.
it would be a picture of the backside because the ones on my booty, because the booty is so white, you can see it clearly. The other ones, like on my leg parts that are tan,
Why don't
you can't really
put
tell.
it on the camera now? And you've been talking about it for a week now. Let the people see what it looks like.
And get the video taken down for nudity. I don't think that's a good idea.
Oh, is this
I'm trying to help people
it's medical science.
find ways to the show. I don't want to scare them. Look, I'm older now. I understand what I am, my plot in life. No one wants to see that.
I know, but I try to goad you into things because I'm never quite sure. Every once in a while,
I'll do some crazy things.
Every once in a while, you will hollow out a wiener and put a straw through it.
The worst, it reminds me of how bad it was, and I'm thankful that I've got things that are hidden. Yeah. But when I had ringworm at age 17, when I was working as a busboy at Red Robin, and it was right in the middle of my head, like right between the eyes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a perfect circle. And the only thing people would say is like, what's up with your face? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about that right now. I don't want to talk about this right now. I want to ask you about this. Jonathan Smith, 7-year deal. The average per year going to be $7.25 million. He's the head coach there at Michigan State. You're not pleased with the decision for him to go to Michigan State. Why is that?
Well, Chad, I don't think of him as your average carpetbagging college coach like a Mario or whatever, who's here as a stepping stone. Look, everybody knew Mario was here just to wait for the Miami job to open. It was a stepping stone, like the Duck job has been for others in the past. I never saw Jonathan as that kind of guy. He came, it was his dream job, back to his alma mater. I thought he was he could have had that job for his whole life, honestly. They were getting ready to make it. He was scheduled to make about $6 million a year. They were working on a new deal. I think he would have probably gotten close to whatever he was going to make in Michigan State. I don't like the idea of the way it came down. I'm not sure he's making a great move. I don't know that his coaching situation is going to improve a lot at Michigan State. Yeah, storied program, great history and all that. With the new teams coming into that league and with the existence of Michigan and Ohio State. I'm not sure he can win there. And then I don't like the idea that this has been in the works for a while. He's trying to coach this team. He owes it to those players to make the total buy-in like he's asking them to do. I'm not sure he bought it. This happened so quick. It had to have been in the works. And he admitted it's been in the works for a while. He put 5 assistant coaches on that plane with him to go back. Those guys had made up their minds. They're going with him. So that is not a 2-day discussion for those assistant coaches. They've been working on that for a while, too. So he's coaching Oregon State in one of their best years they've had in ages. And I'm not sure there's a total buy-in there. I think that's kind of cheesy. I just didn't like the whole thing. And I think it spoke to it. He's not the guy I thought he was. I thought there'd be more loyalty. I think a better job might come up for him at some point. I think it was worth waiting to get them through what is the lowest time in their existence now for a long, long time in the past. So I just wasn't happy with it. I'm disappointed that he did that. And the cavalier way he was asked about it, they said, how tough was it to leave Oregon State? Well, yeah, I just wanted to make sure I had a place to go when I left. Well, that's not answering the question. It's basically saying, yeah, I'm not going to dump my girlfriend until I have a new girlfriend. I just didn't like the way it came down, Chad. I'm disappointed in him. Yeah.
Well, I don't put a lot of weight into those press conferences that initially happen right after a coaching change has been made because he's trying to endear himself to the people at Michigan State. So he doesn't want to make it sound like he was really depressed over the decision to leave, right? It's a tough spot. It's a very awkward position. Let me ask you this question. If the Pac-12 had gotten a TV deal, if the idiots had decided to go with the ESPN deal and it was still a conference, do you think Jonathan Smith would be leaving right now for another school?
Well, he certainly left real fast for this one. Yeah, he might.
Do you think he would stay at Oregon State or do you think he'd be gone?
Probably be gone.
You think so?
If he was offered this job, yeah.
I just don't have any issue with him leaving whatsoever. I will say that after hearing the press conference, I should have seen this or thought about it a little more deeply. And it was just like what you and I talked about. As soon as the Pac-12 conference dissolved, he probably started planning his next job right then. He and his agent got together and they said, okay, this is a disaster. We need to come up with a plan and be on the lookout for the next spot. So I think they were planning it from the day that they knew the conference was no more and that Oregon State and Washington State had no plan that they were looking for their next job. I don't doubt that at all because that's what smart people do when you wind up in a situation that's out of your control. I can't blame Jonathan Smith for leaving. It's not his fault that the conference leadership was pathetic or that the school presidents defended Larry Scott for years past the time he should have been fired. And that poor leadership led the conference into a position where they had no TV deal, no options, and then it was a mass exodus with all these teams going to the Big Ten, the Big 12, and then Oregon State and Washington State are left with nothing. The budgets at Oregon State have already been tremendously slashed. They don't have a plan moving forward long-term in terms of what conference they're going to be in. Difficult to schedule, difficult to function as a football staff when you don't have the funds or the resources to make things happen. So for Jonathan Smith, I can't blame him for wanting to go to the next spot when the conference dissolved. And I look at Jonathan Smith differently than some people do. I don't think he's a good coach. I think he's a great coach. And I think he's an elite coach that's as good as anybody in the country. And I'm excited to see what he'll do at a school in a legitimate conference with better resources and access to better talent than what he had at Oregon State. So I'm excited to see what Jonathan Smith can do because I think he can coach and compete with the best coaches in the country. That's how highly I think of him as a football mind.
Well, he's going to have to because they're not going to cut him the kind of slack that he would be cut at Oregon State. And especially if he stayed and saw them through this 2-year period that they're going to go through. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to win, like there is at all the Big Ten schools. They fire coaches every year in that conference because you're supposed to win, and it's really going to be hard to win. You always had to beat Michigan and Ohio State. Now in the Big Ten, you got to beat Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, USC, maybe even UCLA would chip there at some point. I don't know. I just think it's going to be a very difficult coaching job in a city that's probably not a very nice city to live in, from what I hear.
Well, it's not like Corvallis is one of the gyms of the world either. I mean,
Well,
let's
it's
be
not
real.
crime-ridden. We'll put it that way.
No, but he's not going to be living in a crime-ridden neighborhood in East Lansing either. I mean, look, I love the Northwest. I've lived out here forever, but let's not act like Corvallis is some, beautiful metropolis or some, secret hidden gem that people don't know about. It's freaking Corvallis.
He purportedly liked the small town life.
I think he did.
Yeah.
But once the school had no conference to play in, he quickly started to realize, I got to get out and get somewhere where I have a chance to compete. That's what he was looking for. I respect the fact, too, with coaches that want to take on a tough job. Going to Michigan State and taking on that job, yeah, it's difficult. It's going to be challenging. He's going to face great competition in that conference. And not only that, he's going to face great competition on the recruiting trail with some of the teams that are in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But the great coaches don't bow out at a tough challenge. They look at it and say, I want that challenge. I want to compete against the best. And I want to see if my skills can get the job done at a school like that. So I respect that. Guys that choose the easy path or staying in a place that's safe or a place that's like, hey, I can be there as long as I want, that's fine. But I like the guys that want to challenge themselves and put themselves in a position and compete against the best. And now he's going to be able to do that. I'm sorry, but being at Oregon State and playing a Mountain West schedule and having no conference that you're a part of, well, the Pac-2, that's not the same as being in the Big Ten and having a chance to compete against the best. If you're a great coach that believes in your abilities, you want to compete and challenge yourself. And unfortunately for Oregon State, they're not in a position to do that now. You go to Michigan State, you're right, there's going to be pressure there. He's going to be expected to win, but don't great coaches want that? They want the pressure.
First of all, there's going to be a 2-year period at Oregon State that's going to be really bad. They don't have a schedule. I think they're going to put this conference back together again, the way you've talked about, cherry-picking teams from Mountain West or Big 12 or whatever. They're going to put something together, and I think it's going to be okay. They'll probably, I think, still have a shot at being a Power 5 conference. If so, they'll have a better path to a playoff berth probably than he would at Michigan State. As far as the coaching challenge of that, well, yeah, it's a big coaching challenge. There's a lot of coaches, great coaches you could put there who wouldn't win. That's what I believe. I think it's a really tough job.
Well,
I think they're behind the 8 ball when they start, and I wish him luck.
Yeah, but what do people care? Jonathan Smith wanted to go to Michigan State.
Well, they care because he wanted out of Oregon State. That's what they care about.
I know, but people are acting like the Michigan State job is so bad. That's the job he chose. He wants to take on that challenge. I just don't understand why Jonathan Smith, of all people, is expected to stay at a school that's his alma mater just because they're going through a tough time. They have no conference. They have no funding. They have no future.
Yeah, but he's the one who said how important that job was to him.
And it was when he took it, and look what he did with the program.
Well, okay.
He did a great job with the program. He built them up from ashes after what Gary Anderson did. I don't think he owes the school anything. He went there and gave them his absolute best. And look what he did with the program. They became a winner again. He put them back on the map, and they went out there and competed with the best teams in the Pac-12. He did a heck of a job.
Mm-hmm. I'm not doubting that.
Yeah. I mean, what else is he supposed to do? Just stay and help them through a difficult time because that's the right thing to do?
Well, what else are any of them supposed to do?
Well, Jonathan Smith is supposed to look out for himself and his family first.
Okay. He's not supposed to look out for his players, that's for sure. If they knew before they played the Civil War game that he was leaving, how good is that?
Well, the problem with college football is there's never a right time to exit. There's never a right time to hire a coach. That's the way the game is played. The cycle is not good. The school has to make a hire immediately after the season is over because you got the early signing period coming up on December 20th. So the decisions have to be made, and there's got to be discussions back channels. That's the way it's done. It's not right. It's just the way the business is done, and that's the way it has to get done. There's no good way. There was never going to be an easy way for Jonathan Smith to exit Oregon State. So what? Let's say he stays on for 2 years to work him through the difficult transition. They're still going to hate him when he leaves after that. Or you're turning your back on the program now.
No, I think if he gave it his best shot for 2 years, they'd say, okay, you tried. It's not workable. Go ahead and go. There'd still be jobs there. Trust me.
I just think
if he's a great coach, like you say, there's always going to be a job for him.
Well, that's the job he chose. He wanted Michigan State. He could have had other jobs, but he chose to take the Michigan State job. I think the primary reason why
is because that wasn't the first job offered him?
I think there were other jobs he had offered, but I think Michigan State was a good opportunity that he wanted, but primarily because Oregon State has no conference, has no future, and their resources are limited at best, and budgets are being slashed. And you don't get a chance to compete against the best because you got to play Mountain West schools.
Well, he didn't even stick around to see if they were going to win the suit to get all that money. If they had all that money, their budget wouldn't be slashed.
Well, regardless of whether they win that suit or not, they still don't have a conference. And I can't blame him for wondering whether the leadership that's left behind, whether it be Scott Barnes or anyone else that's involved with the Pac-12 right now or the Pac-2, I would question if they know what they're doing because they're the ones that got themselves in that mess. Maybe he doesn't trust Scott Barnes. Anyone in the Pac-12 or Pac-2 now that tells me, hey, we're going to be okay and we got a plan here, I'm going to highly question whether they know what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't blame a guy who fell victim of a disaster that he had nothing to do with and wanting to move on to a different opportunity. And for a coach, I look at the work they did. When he took over the job up until the time that they left, did they improve the program? Did they leave it off in a better place? And for Jonathan Smith, you can say yes.
Yeah, I just think there is a factor of integrity and loyalty and all those things. I look back at Pat Casey, who had the opportunity to go to LSU, the best baseball school in the country, and he turned him down. He stayed at Oregon State.
Yeah, he had a conference, too, that he was coaching in. He actually had a conference.
In baseball, it wouldn't matter. They could be Mountain West, and they're still going to get a chance to compete, and they're going to get a chance to go to Omaha. So it doesn't matter as much in baseball. But I just think you're talking about going to the best ballpark, the best fan base, the best conference, the best salary, the best players in college baseball. They win it all the time. He turned it down because he liked Corvallis. He was loyal to the school. And it's not even his alma mater. He didn't go to college there. But that's a different person. I thought Jonathan Smith was that guy who would stick around and try to get him out of this abyss that they're about to fall into.
When Jonathan Smith was hired, I thought it was a good hire, and I was excited to see what he'd do. What I learned over the course of time that he was in Corvallis, I realized that he's too good of a coach for Corvallis, that he is destined for bigger and better things. I think he's going to go on to have tremendous success in the future, no matter where his stops are. I think he's that good of a coach. He outgrew Corvallis, and now he gets a chance to go out and compete against the best. That's truly how I see it.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. Yeah.
So you just think he's going to fail?
Well, it depends on how you judge failing. They'll judge failing a little different in East Lansing than they do here. That's for sure. I think it's going to be a really difficult job for him. I do. I think it's going to be hard to recruit players there. It has been. And I think that conference is going to be a bear to win. There's too many good teams in there.
That's true. The advantage now with the way that the whole system is set up is you don't have to win your conference to get into the playoff. And there'll be opportunities for Michigan State, not every year, but Jonathan Smith can do his work. And then, every 2 to 3 years, you put your team in a position to compete. Michigan State will never be Michigan or Ohio State. That's never going to happen. They never have been. But you can find those opportunities every couple of years to where you can put yourself in the mix and make a playoff. Michigan State has been in a college football playoff. Oregon State is not. Michigan State has. And he's going to have access to better players. I just think Jonathan Smith is terrific, and I think he's going to be able to showcase that. I'm just surprised to see people so upset. What'd you expect him to do? The conference is a disaster. I know you're not surprised. You said when the conference dissolved that, well,
I told you
Smith's
last Friday
go.
here, I thought in the end he was trying to get more money for his assistant coaches, and I thought he would stay.
Yeah, I thought he would stay, too.
I was wrong about that.
Yeah.
I thought he would stay.
I misread the situation. I should have went back with my initial thought when the conference dissolved and thought, man, it's going to be, you got to get out of there. You got to get out of there. You got to move on and find a different spot. That's a tough spot. I feel bad for Beaver fans because I like the program. I want to see them do well. But this is a tough spot. And I don't know how they recover coming out of this.
It's going to be really difficult.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. If you want to reach out, you can do so. Find Dwight on X, at Dwight Jaynes. You'll find me there at Chad and Rip City. When we come back, we got a pair of tickets for your Portland Trailblazers. It's Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. We'll give away a pair of tickets next. Listen to us for your chance to win. Rip City Radio and Holt Homes want to pay your mortgage or rent in 2024. Went up to $18,000 to help offset those monthly Well, it's a great time to give away Trailblazer tickets coming off a very nice win at Indiana yesterday.
Yeah, people have to be excited over that.
I was impressed with the victory. I was concerned how they might come out in the second of a back-to-back after that second-half collapse against Milwaukee. But once again, multiple guys making plays. Jeremy Grant had with the good offense. Malcolm Brogdon came up big late. Big night from DeAndre Ayton. And what I like about their defense in the second half is that they really kind of slowed down the Indiana attack. And then most importantly, points. They found a way to get buckets late in games, which has been an issue. They got 31 points up in the fourth, but that was an impressive win. Indiana scoring points at a remarkable pace right now at 128 points per game, which would be the NBA record for points average per game during the course of the season.
You know, Chad, sometimes it pays off to have a young team.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're playing back-to-back road games, if you've got young guys on your team, you have more energy. A veteran team full of veteran guys like we've had here in the past, it'd be really hard for those guys to get ready to go. But when you got young guys still trying to impress people that they can play, find their spot in the league or their spot in the rotation or their spot in the starting lineup, they'll come out and play hard for you. And those guys played hard yesterday.
All right, we got breaking news from the Dean of Portland Sports, Kerry Agers. We'll give that to you in just a moment. But we have a pair of tickets for the Blazers and Jazz at Moda Center coming up on December 14th. So a little basketball pre-Christmas for you. If you would like to go to the game, caller 10 right now will get a pair of tickets. 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. Fire away with your phone calls right now. Caller 10 will get a pair of tickets for the Blazers and Jazz December 14th at Moda Center. And for all of your ticket needs, head on over to trailblazers.com. Caller 10 right now, 503-248-0620. Caller 10 will get a pair of tickets for the Blazers and Jazz coming up on December 14th. Kerry Agers has got some news in regards to the Oregon State Beavers. What's happening?
Well, Kerry's reporting that Trent Bray will indeed be introduced as the head football coach at Oregon State later today.
Well, I like Trent Bray. I like Trent Bray, Godfather, but that's a rough transition to go from experienced head coach in Jonathan Smith, offensive mind, guru, to Trent Bray.
Yeah. Well, and he hasn't really been even a defensive coordinator for a long period of time, just a couple of years, really. Well, a little bit longer than that, but not a long time. And he better find himself a real good offensive coordinator because those defensive guys, we've seen it before in colleges and in the pros. The defensive head coaches, they struggle with the offensive side of the ball. So what you have to do is find that offensive guru and just give them the offense. You know, yeah, we're going to go for it. That's a decision. We're going to kick the field goal, whatever. But let him have the offense.
Well, it's a great opportunity for Bray. The one advantage he may have is at least for the next couple of years, the Beavers are going to be playing a more relaxed schedule in terms of the teams are going to be facing week in and week out compared to the Pac-12 schedule. So it could give him an opportunity to get off in his coaching debut to a decent start.
Yeah, and supposedly they're going to announce the schedule tomorrow, which will be interesting even to see. I'm kind of curious how many games they're going to play.
How many times they're going to play Washington State?
Yeah, suppose they're going to play them twice, right?
Home and home?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
That's
and
what I heard.
It may not be a full schedule. I'm guessing they might have one or two slots open.
Wow.
Going to be tough.
Wow. I mean, that was a brutal 12-hour stretch. You lose to Oregon, get smacked in the Civil War, and then the next day you find out Jonathan Smith is on his way to Michigan State.
Yeah, along with who knows how many of his players. We already know half his coaching staff is going with him, and who knows how many of the players will follow him there.
Aiden Childs?
Probably.
Yeah, players will typically follow the coach that recruited them if they have a good relationship.
Right. And if that coach thinks they can play at that level, too, you know, that's sometimes a difference of opinion there sometimes.
Yeah, it could be. Hey, Childs, I liked you at Oregon State, but not as much at Michigan State.
You might be good staying there because I got this guy who's been here waiting for this starting job, and I'll go with him.
But these are the type of situations, the prime example of why I'm happy that the kids now have the ability to transfer and have access to making some money in NIL. I've always thought it was so bizarre for years how coaches could preach commitment, preach dedication and all this nonsense, and then pick up the next day and just walk to a different job. and
Yeah.
make a lot more money in the process. And now at least players, if they're with a school, they were recruited by a particular coach, and he decides to take off, you have the freedom to go out and see if there's a better opportunity for you out there. I hated seeing players get stuck in situations like that where it's like, wait a second, this is not what I signed up for. When I agreed to join your school and sign the letter of intent, I was under the impression this guy was going to be my coach. And now these circumstances have changed. So I like players having the flexibility now to look at other options.
Yeah, I do too, Chad. The one thing I don't like is using NIL as a recruiting tool and putting players up for auction. I'm not a fan of that. I think it was originally intended to reward the players who are playing for you and to pay them for playing for you, not to give it to them before they've ever played it down for you.
Yeah. You mean like Cam Ward being offered up $1 million to join the school?
Yeah, well, along those lines. Yeah, how many schools, Chad, have been in on that?
Yeah, a ton. I saw a list of 5 schools today. Washington is one of them. And I think you said the list is as deep as 7. But this is the way the game's going to be played now, where if you are a really good quarterback and you're playing for a smaller school and a school knows they can bring you in and win games with you, you're going to get offered all sorts of things. And for Cam Ward, similar situation to Jonathan Smith from the standpoint that he's got an opportunity now to take a look around. He played really well, but now the situation has changed at Washington State. If he wants to stay, that's fine. But if he looks elsewhere and realizes, hey, I got a chance to go and compete against the very best in the country and test myself against the best, then I think it's cool to have an opportunity to do that.
They'll not only lose him, but they'll lose all those good receivers they had, too.
Oh, yeah.
What's the point of them sticking around?
Playing receiver with Cam Ward is nice.
Yeah.
Playing a receiver with an unknown quantity of quarterbacks, not the same situation, obviously. It's a wild, wild west in college football now.
That's crazy.
But these coaches, have you ever seen a coach's exit be smooth? They're all messy.
Yeah.
When they jump to another school, it always is messy.
Yeah, these days. It used to be different.
Yeah.
It used to be. Now there's such a sense of urgency with the transfer portal and the letter of intent day and all that other stuff. I mean, it's a mess.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. When we come back, we got to talk some NFL. One team is the hottest team in football that's won
Which
5
team?
straight.
Who is that?
The Denver Broncos, my friend.
Right.
I love it. I'm having so much fun watching Bronco games now. I feel like a kid again. It's been awesome. We also got to talk about Philadelphia. They're taking on San Francisco this weekend. The Eagles at 10-1. Haven't even played their best football yet and got another win over Buffalo on Sunday. And we'll take a look at the hierarchy at the top of the AFC. You got a 3-team race for the number 1 seed, which is going to be critical. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. The holiday playlist that fits every mood from last Christmas to my only wish this year. The Christmas Hits playlist on the iHeartRadio will put everyone in the holiday spirit. Search Christmas Hits on the free iHeartRadio app.
Here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
Hey, what's going on now? 4 o'clock, Chad here. Oregon and Washington, Pac-12 title game Friday night in Las Vegas. Kickoff at 5 on ABC. Oregon opened as a 7.5-point favorite. That line is up to 9.5. Both teams vying for a spot in the college football playoff. Bama and Georgia from Atlanta at 1 on CBS. Georgia right now a 6-point favorite in the SEC title game. The Washington State Supreme Court granted a stay preventing OSU and WSU from having control of the conference until the court determines if they will hear the case. Contract terms have been released for Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. 7-year deal at $7.25 million per year. Meanwhile, OSU AD Scott Barnes hopes to have a head coach by the end of the week. Kerry Agers reporting that Trent Bray will be announced as the head coach later today. Trailblazers, big win in Indiana last night. A couple of days off. They're in Cleveland Thursday to meet the Cavs. Tip at 4. Game day will start at 1:30 here on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
You know, Scotty Bethune was hitting me up on Twitter saying, hey, a younger Chad would have sent that picture out on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or posted on YouTube so everyone could see it. I just text you a picture of my ass. Do you understand why I'm not sharing that with anyone, including your wife, Nancy, who's a doctor?
I think you still should put it out on Twitter. No, it's not a pleasant sight.
No,
in fact, I kind of wish I hadn't had lunch right now. I might have to go off camera here for a second.
You've seen better things in your time, haven't you?
I've seen better things in my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hideous.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm going to the doctor tonight. I can't believe I just sent that picture to you, but I wanted you to know what I was dealing with.
Did you try any kinds of lotion or anything like that on there? Salve or
I have. I use something, I think they call it like HIPAA lotion or Hippo. I can't remember. It's something they use at the hospital to clean off something before they doctor it.
Oh.
So I use that soap, and I've used different ointments. I've used some calamine lotion.
Right. That's
and the one I sent you, that picture, it's actually getting better because it's drying out.
Drying out, yeah.
Yeah. It still looks hideous, though.
Are they painful?
I wouldn't say painful.
They probably itch, right? Do they itch?
They're sensitive to the touch, and there is an itchy component to it. Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited. I can't wait to go in and just drop trowel in front of a stranger and say, hey, what's going on here? I don't like to do that. No one wants to see that.
No, but this is, from taking a look, Chad, you're doing the right thing. This is something that you should have
Going to the doctor is a good idea.
You don't want any of these to spread to your face. That would not be good.
Yeah, that crossed my mind as well. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. So far, it's not on my face. I want to make sure it doesn't get on my face. Dude, I'm serious. If that gets on my face, you're not going to see me until it disappears. I'm out. I am out. I'll wear a mask. I will be some type of person you've never seen before. I'll be in costume until it goes away.
Here, let me put it on the camera. No.
All right. The Denver Broncos, along with the Philadelphia Eagles, hottest team in football right now with not one, not two, but how about 5 straight wins, Godfather? I know that you didn't take it seriously after they beat Kansas City for 2 in a row because you're like, well, Mahomes was under the weather. But now they've got wins over the Packers, who look pretty good on Thanksgiving. They beat the Chiefs. They beat the Bills. They beat the Vikings. And they just took out the Cleveland Browns. So they're doing it against good competition. I'm really impressed with the job Sean Payton has done, one, by showing patience from the front office down and not doing anything rash after the slow start at 1-5. They stuck with Vance Joseph, and they got younger guys in the lineup, and now look what's happening. You're starting to see a team take shape. They have an identity now. They're a physical team that wants to run the football, and they can let Russ be Russ in spots and get the ball downfield. It's a pretty good coaching job, is it not?
Oh, gosh. It was like he took them for a test drive the first 3 or 4 games of the season. It's like, okay, now I know where the problems are. And he said it at the time, we're going to button this thing up.
Yeah.
We're going to get tighter. They're more conservative. Here's the thing I didn't mention to you before the show. Do you know, and I'm sure you do, they take the points every time. You don't see these, well, 4th and 2, we're going to go. We're going to go. No, we're taking the points every time. Then you go back and look at the end of the game. Well, they won by 1, they won by 3, they won by 5, whatever. He takes the points. Old school, conservative football coach, that's the way they're playing to maximize their opportunities of what they do best. It's perfect. This is probably not the way Sean Payton really wants to play, but he knows he wants to win. And that's a lot more important. And he's making it work. I think he's a definite Coach of the Year candidate.
Russell Wilson right now, top 5 in completion percentage, top 5 in quarterback ratings, got the best touchdown to interception ratio in the NFL, and he's top 5 in touchdowns. 20 touchdowns, 4 picks on the year.
Wow.
And he's playing smart football. And what I love about Russ, all the talk last year under Hackett was Russ just cares about his numbers. He only cares about his numbers. He only cares about his numbers. And the truth is that's not the case. He's bought in 100% into what Payton wants to do and the plan of attack. And when your quarterback is embracing how the coach wants to play and he's getting the job done, all of a sudden, all these other areas of your team start to look better. And so the game this weekend in Houston, both teams are at 6-5. Conference tiebreakers, AFC games are going to be critical. So whoever wins the game on Sunday is going to be in the driver's seat for a wild card spot. And if the Broncos go from 1-5 to the playoffs, that would be phenomenal. And I can't wait to see this game on Sunday because you got C.J. Stroud and the Texans coming off a tough loss at home to Jacksonville, the Broncos with 5 straight, and we'll see how things continue to play out. But regardless of what happens the rest of the way, the improvement that I've seen this year with the coaching that Sean Payton has done, it's been a terrific season to be able to sit back and watch. And they got some winnable games coming up on the schedule. The amazing part to me, Godfather, is look at the Broncos. They go out and they pay huge money to bring in Sean Payton, and you're seeing immediate results. The Chargers.
I was just going to say, the Chargers had their shot at him.
They did. He would have taken the job in L.A. with the Chargers over the Bronco job.
Yeah.
But they chose to go cheap and keep their coach in Brandon Staley, and it's going to be a costly mistake because look at what Peyton's doing now. Don't you think that Peyton with Justin Herbert would be doing just fine right now in L.A.? Well, of course he would. This is why you don't go cheap in the NFL, and this is why you pay big money for great coaching because it's a big-time difference maker. And that's what Sean Payton has done. He was 1-5. They took a look at the roster, and before you know it, they bring in the youngsters, a couple guys on the defensive line. They bring in a couple of young guys to strengthen the secondary and one edge for the Broncos. They're the only team in the NFL with all 5 offensive linemen to play every snap. So you develop continuity because you got the same guys on the field each and every Sunday. So I just want to let you know that I'm enjoying Bronco football as much as I have for the first time in 8 years. It's a blast. Woo!
I've worked with you too long because when they win, I get calls now. Yeah. Oh, Chad's going to be a happy guy this week. Oh, Chad's team.
I know.
It's like, give me a break on Chad's team. I don't care.
It was terrific. So I'm pretty happy about that. I'm having a blast watching him play. It's fun. My dad's happy. He told me, he goes, that was a satisfying win. He called me up. My dad's watching. He's happy, so it's good. I do want to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Had the great come-from-behind victory in overtime. Needed a 60-yard field goal to tie it, and then Jalen Hurts took his team on a touchdown drive in overtime to get the win. They're now 10-1, Godfather. They're going to get the number 1 seed in the NFC, and they're out to such a great start that the game against San Francisco on Sunday, while it's important, it's not a must-win for the Philadelphia Eagles. This is what I love about this team. They haven't even played their best football, and they're 10-1, and their strength at the line of scrimmage and their ability to play any style of football regardless of weather, that's why I chose them to win the Super Bowl before the year began. That's why I believe that they're going to get the home field advantage, which it looks like they are. I just love their makeup and the way they play. And Jalen Hurts is the same guy after a win, after a loss, even after a big play. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. He's a terrific leader. I like what that team's made up of because they didn't play well for long stretches against Buffalo, and yet in the end they came out on top. It's impressive.
Yeah, they've gone a long time without playing their best game, which is kind of curious to me. Is this maybe just who they are this year?
It's possible.
Yeah, which it's good enough to win. It's good enough to win, I guess.
Yeah, you could say the same thing about the Chiefs. We keep waiting for them to get better offensively. Well, the truth is maybe this is who the Chiefs are going to be this year with that young receiving core. They're going to lean on their defense and hope that those guys can come up with a couple of grabs. And you're right, maybe Philadelphia won't take it to the next level, but in the NFC, if they're playing at home with their ability at the line of scrimmage and with Jalen Hurts, they may not need to go to that next level. They just know how to win, and they're great at the line of scrimmage, and they can run the football, and they're very physical. They do things the right way. I'm impressed with the way they operate.
Yeah, it's.
Would you give them the edge right now in the NFC?
I like the 49ers.
All right.
The problem is going to be playing. You got to beat them in Philadelphia if you want to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that's not easy, going to that place to have to win a football game. In the AFC, though, so I think in the NFC, it's pretty clear Philadelphia is going to get the 1 seed. In the AFC, you've got 3 teams. It's Baltimore, Jacksonville, because their schedule down the stretch, as I've been telling you all year, is very easy. They got a lot of winnable games, and Kansas City. Those 3 teams. I thought Baltimore, once again, they showcased what makes them special. They were so physical on Sunday night against the Chargers. Like, that team doesn't mess around on defense. They're tough-minded. They're very physical. They can run the football and win games even when Lamar Jackson's not having the best night.
Yeah.
They can win games in a lot of different ways. I don't know who I give the edge to in the AFC. I'd probably lean Baltimore at the moment, but I know Jacksonville's schedule is going to be easy, so we'll see how things continue to play out. Who do you give the edge to for the number 1 seed of those 3, Baltimore, Kansas City, or Jacksonville?
It kind of looks like it's going to be Baltimore to me.
Yeah.
I think.
It'd be nice to see Patrick Mahomes have to be
On the
outside
road?
of Arrowhead Stadium playing a playoff game for once.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be so bad. All right, we have the top 25, which has been released now. Georgia's 1, Michigan 2, Washington 3, Florida State 4, and Oregon 5. That's exactly what we said it was going to be.
Yeah, it is. And that's good news for Oregon, really. They didn't get jumped by Ohio State, which could have happened. They're right there to switch places with Washington if they beat them.
Okay, so now that we know Georgia is number 1, the question is, if they lose to Bama, would the committee move them out of the top 4? That's the question, Godfather. If they lose to Bama, where's Georgia going to go?
If it's a close game, they won't move them out of the top 4. They'll go to number 4.
Even if they got annihilated, I'm not sure they would get moved out of the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's going to be the question. So here are the games this weekend. Obviously, Oregon and Washington on Friday night. Texas will take on Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game. In the SEC, Georgia will meet Alabama. Michigan will take on Iowa in what could be one of the ugliest football games of all time. If you hate offense, that's your game right there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, of course, in the ACC, Florida State taking on Louisville. And I got to give Florida State credit. I did not think they were going to win that game at Florida with their backup quarterback. They went in there and found a way to get it done.
They did.
That was tough. That was tough. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk football. Chris Burkhart's going to join us in studio.
One more bit of breaking news. Mark Cuban is selling a large portion of his shares in the Mavericks. He will retain operational control of the team, but he's not going to be the majority owner anymore.
Interesting. Do you know who the purchasing party is?
Somebody named Miriam Adelson.
Do you know what the price is?
No, I can't imagine.
He's going to bank a few dollars in that process, isn't he?
Yeah. You wonder if he's running a little short.
Huh. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. When we come back, Jonathan Smith, you got any issues with his decision to leave? What's next for Oregon State? And then we'll get to Washington and Oregon, and we'll talk about these playoff rankings. Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Washington 3, and Florida State is 4. Oregon and Ohio State, the first 2 teams out. You got the Rip City Drive. Grab your VIP pass to the table where the big NFL conversations happen with the new show, Schrager's NFL Roundtable. Join Peter Schrager, the insightful voice of NFL Network and Fox Sports, each week as he opens up his notebook and shares the inside scoop on the latest developments in the world of football. But that's not all. This podcast goes beyond the headlines. Peter is joined by a distinguished guest list featuring decision makers, power brokers, and celebrity football fans, creating a dynamic roundtable discussion that takes you beyond the surface of the game. Get ready to be in the know and at the heart of the action with Schrager's NFL Roundtable every week on the iHeartRadio app.
It's Rip City Drive on 620 Rip City Radio. Brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
All right, Chris Burkhardt, our good friend, is in studio with us. Wanted to talk a little ball. You're actually happy that the committee has Oregon in front of Ohio State. Oregon, the first team out of 5, Ohio State at 6, coming off the loss to Michigan. Why is that?
I just think the pathway just opened up a little more. I thought Ohio State was going to come in at 5, Oregon at 6, and then there was going to be a little bit of more work to do, and then you still have those weird scenarios where how could Ohio State get back in here? But again, we had this debate. We wasted such good radio during the commercial break, right? But I do think this opens the door. I think the Pac-12 champion has a very, very good shot of being in if it's Oregon.
All right, I agree, and so does Dwight. The question we want to have answered is, in the doomsday scenario where Florida State wins, Michigan wins, Alabama wins, and the committee's got to sit there and choose between Texas, 1 loss, conference champ with a win at Alabama, Oregon, 1 loss, conference champ with a win over Washington, or Georgia with 1 loss in the SEC title game to Bama. Are they going to drop Georgia from 1 to 5? That's really the question.
No, that's the tough part. That's the tough part because I just don't think they will because Georgia's Georgia, right? But that sucks.
It does. Who do you think would be more deserving at that point? If Georgia were to lose to Alabama and Oregon beat Washington, who's the more deserving team in that situation, Godfather?
What do you mean by deserving?
You know what I mean by deserving.
I don't know.
Deserving meaning you won your conference championship.
Yeah, well, look, they've never done the Pac-12 any favors in that committee. And I think they would love to put Georgia in, even if they lose. 2-time defending champs.
Yeah, I agree.
And they'd love to see the title game come down to Alabama and Georgia. So they'd match them up 1-4 or 1-2 or something like that, so they wouldn't meet until the second round.
It's something we've seen before. How many times has the non-conference champ of the SEC got into this? We've seen it happen. That's why we sit here and we know what would happen. But again, when you ask most deserving, like at that point, like if you want, like really, who deserves it? The one that won their conference. Like go back receipts for forever. If you're in a 4-team playoff, you don't win your conference that you get in the playoff. Like it's so weird. Couldn't win my conference, but got a national championship. Like
that's
weird
true.
To me.
But then if you look at Florida State, if they win the game against Louisville and win the conference, they're undefeated. They might be deserving, but I don't believe that they're a better team than Georgia. So that's where I get hung up in my mind. I'm like, yeah, Florida State won their conference, they're undefeated, but I think Georgia's better than they are.
Yeah, I think Oregon's better than Florida State. You do too, don't you?
I think there are teams outside of the top 4 that are better than Florida State.
Yeah.
I think Texas is better than Florida State. I think Ohio State's better than Florida State. Yeah.
I feel like the committee feels that way too. Like, I feel like I don't think it's a 0% chance that a team could jump Florida State and you could see an undefeated Florida State left out. That could be crazy, but it could happen.
What does history say about an undefeated conference champ?
That's not going to happen. Yeah,
I know, but this is a weird year where Florida State had the cupcake of all cupcake schedules and breezed through it like they should have. But the teams behind them, like you just said, Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, they're all better than Florida State.
I agree. I would agree with that. So, well, first things first, they got to take care of business on Friday night.
Yes.
The Ducks are a whopping 9.5-point favorite. That's
Vegas
a big
knows
number.
something.
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder, I have a theory on this. I'll share it with you.
This is good, by the way.
I think that Michael Penix is hurt. That's what I truly believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think he hurt his ribs against Oregon the first time around. And again, in college football, you don't have to report injuries, so teams keep things on the very hush-hush, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Well, he was acting very weird after that game against Washington State on Saturday. And I've been watching some communication with Softy, who's in close with the program and stuff. And people are asking him directly, like, is Penix okay? And he's like, oh, yeah, I think he's fine. He's just a little under the weather. Yeah, maybe because that's what they want people to believe. But the rib injury would make sense because you look at the way they've played and the way the offense has been a little bit off and the way Penix has not quite been the same. That would make sense.
It would make sense because he has not looked the same.
Yeah.
Neither has the team, and Oregon's looked great. That's why I told you the other day, I think coming out is, 9.5? you sit there and everyone's like, that's a weird number. I go, because I think if you went like the more realistic, like Oregon 3.5, everybody's betting the over, right? Yeah. And the game might end up being far over that just because of the way these two teams have played. I think if you said at 9.5, you weigh your averages and you're okay, there's going to be people who bet the under on that or take Washington to cover. Like that's again, Vegas is looking to lose the least amount of money as possible.
Or make the most amount of money as possible.
Yeah, that one too.
You get a bunch of people on one side and it goes the other way. So we'll see how that shakes out. But you're confident in the Ducks on Friday? You think they're going to win? Do you have any concerns? And if so, what are they?
I think they're going to win just because they've been playing so well. I'll go back to the game in Seattle. I thought that they outplayed Washington for large chunks of that game. That came down to some coaching decisions. You lose on a last-second field goal. Everything else, it was pretty even matchup. I think the concerns are that Washington defensive secondary is really good. And then on offense, Odunze's an absolute stud, right? And they're going to be able to test Oregon. Oregon's biggest weakness is the safeties. So where's your help over the top when they try to attack you deep? And we know Penix can throw that deep ball with the best of them. So the defense is going to get tested again. I think this is going to be another game, Chad. As well as Oregon has been playing and as poor as Washington has looked, I think this is going to be another game similar to the one we got in Seattle where these two teams just battle it out, go back and forth, who makes the first mistake. And that one might be Washington if it's Penix who's not playing at 100%, which would kind of suck because I don't know I know Husky fans liked it because they won last year, but there's also that, it would have been nice to do it if Nix was fully healthy. Like I want the Huskies best in a game like this.
Well, Dwight, Chris is right. Oregon's looked really good. You mentioned game control. Dave Bartu pointed out that game control is one of the most important metrics to the committee that's going to be selecting the 4 playoff teams. I think Oregon's number 1 in that category right now, aren't they?
I believe they are, and really solidly number 1, I believe. They've had great game control most of the season. So but I have thought all year in a rematch, as long as they didn't have to go back to Seattle and play it, neutral field, Oregon beats them the next time around. I think it's tough to beat the same team twice in any sport, it seems like. But by the same token, I think Oregon has the better team. I really do. My only concern, and Chris mentioned it, the deep ball. I think Oregon, you can hurt Oregon deep. They've been hurt deep by some teams, and I think Penix is the guy to do it. Now, if he's hurt, that's a whole different story. And in the second half of the first game, they got pressure on him. Penix was a different guy. And we've seen that through the second half of the season. Teams have been able to get him off platform a little bit, and it's changed the way he's thrown the ball.
Well, it's going to be a fun weekend for you. Friday night, you get the Pac-12 title game. And if the Ducks get the win, then you can move on to Saturday at 1 o'clock. And I would imagine, even though you think it's a done deal, you're going to be watching the SEC title game with some very keen interest. Am I right?
I always enjoy watching the SEC title game because it rarely disappoints. But there will never have been a game that the Ducks have not played in where I will be as stressed on the edge of my seat watching because it's going to weigh heavily on the decision if Oregon wins the game Friday.
Wow. And then I would imagine that the winner, if Oregon wins and they get in, they would probably be slotted at number 3 and not number 4 if Florida State were to win, right? So Oregon might be number 3 ahead of Florida State, and then you could avoid playing Georgia in that first game.
Yeah. And again, that's why I think there's things set up here because, as I told you during the commercial break, Chad, like everyone talks about Texas and the good win they have over Bama. Well, Bama's currently ranked 8th in the CFP. Now, if Oregon goes and wins the game on Friday, they have a really good win over an undefeated Washington who's currently ranked 3rd. So that has to factor in as well. I mean, if Bama gets rewarded for knocking off the undefeated team, Oregon should get rewarded for doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, but head-to-head matters, right?
Well, I think it does. It does to me. Yeah. So,
and they would have beaten them head-to-head.
I think the only way Oregon gets left out if they beat Washington is that scenario where Georgia beats or loses to Alabama. That's the only way I see that going down.
That causes mass chaos.
Yeah.
Mass chaos.
Don't you think this is the perfect year to send them into the bigger team playoff? Everybody can see now why you need more teams in this playoff.
Yeah.
Oh, without question.
Yeah, 4 is not enough because you've got great teams who are getting left out. And if we had the expanded playoff this year, you get a chance to see some of those matchups.
Washington would be in. Ohio State would be in.
Like if Georgia gets left out, they're deserving to be in the playoff. They haven't lost a game in 3 years. They've been 12-0 3 consecutive seasons. That's ridiculous.
Think of the storylines here, too. Granted, the Pac will be gone, but can you imagine if the 12-teamer were this year? So in the last year of the Pac-12, Oregon beats Washington in the championship game to get a higher seed into the playoff, but then they end up matching up with Washington again later in the playoff for a third time in a single year. You know, the rubber. Like, oh, man, that'd be great. Be great.
I love it. Yeah, I'm pumped, man. I can't wait for Friday. This is going to be a great, great weekend. Jonathan Smith on his way to Michigan State, 7 years. The base pay is going to be $7.25 million per year. Do you have any issues with Jonathan Smith leaving?
No, I don't have issues with him leaving, and I don't have issues with coaches leaving quite often. I have issues with how the leaving happens, right? Just be transparency, man. There's just none of it. Absolutely none of it. I hate that a coach can walk in to a meeting with a player and want the player to do every little thing perfect and tell me everything that you're doing. And I need to know all this, and then go into his parents' room, right, and lie to his parents to get him to come here. And then the minute that kid's there, gives him all his all, yeah, I'm going to be here. Bolts. I don't like that. I just don't like that. If there is a period, right, Chad and Dwight, where, okay, transfer portal time, right? An early signing period. You can't go to the school till this time. And how come coaches don't have that exact same thing, right? Because coaches can just leave whenever they want. And
is that the best way to do it? What would be the best way to set it up to where you don't have this messiness in divorces with college football coaches and their programs?
Well, I think Chris is onto something. I think you could easily push the transfer portal back a little bit because kids in college are coming up on Christmas break anyway. Let them go home, talk about whether or not they're going to transfer with their parents or their uncles or whoever they talk to, and have it be in January. Same thing with the letter of intent. There's no reason it couldn't be moved back a little bit so that coaches have 3 weeks, 4 weeks in between all those things happening so that they can explore other offers if they wanted. But I can tell you right now, there's nobody to make that rule. Nobody really is going to do that. It's just not going to ever happen.
No, it's not going to happen. But I wish it would. I
agree.
Oregon State fan would not be as upset if Jonathan Smith saw this thing through, coached the Beavers in whatever bowl game they went to, and then after the bowl game, it's like, hey, here's the deal. I'm going to MSU, right? But you went through that entire season. You didn't spend the last 2 weeks interviewing with teams, and like they pointed out, like the Beavers looked different in the Civil War, and they absolutely did. So did Oregon when Cristobal left.
I don't even know if it's the last 2 weeks. This thing started weeks ago. I believe that. You got assistant coaches making their decision. Bingo. The next day, yeah, I'm going with him. You don't make decisions like that without taking several weeks to talk it over with your family, your agent, your advisors, everybody.
Absolutely.
This thing has been in the works. I don't think the coaches had a full buy-in with that team down the stretch of the season.
Think about this, the whole Mel Tucker situation, right? Months ago.
Yeah.
So the minute they knew they needed a coach, they start that extensive search. And so you know how long it's been that he's been in these conversations. So that's the part that I don't like, Chad. Like, no, you have a team to focus on contractual obligations, focus on that. And then maybe there can be a window where if you want to explore the true coaching carousel, let's explore it that way. Then we know what's going on. You can be more transparent, but it's just a disservice to the kids and the fan bases that spend a lot of money for these guys.
Yeah, and they all do it. Mm-hmm. And that's the way the game is played now. Because you know those channels. I think now, I was telling Dwight, based on what I heard from Jonathan Smith, that as soon as the conference dissolved, I think they started looking at options.
Yeah.
What's our next plan? Where are we going next?
And in his introductory press conference today, he said that the Pac-12 dissolving had no bearing on his decision, which I
think is an garbage.
I'll show you that video.
Might as well start him off with a lie.
I was just going to say, I will show you this video, and at the same time, I will be showing you a video of a liar. Because I think in a vacuum, in a vacuum, maybe Michigan State a little better than Oregon State. But you can't, it's kind of the Oregon State of the Big Ten, right? It's playing within Michigan's shadow. Oregon is the big brother, as people say, and to Oregon State, you always want to battle. You have good years here and there, but overall, you haven't been that great. It's like, and you leave for that? Like, that just doesn't make sense.
It's not even that much more money than he was going to make at Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not. He's going to make $6 million a year anyway, and they're working on a new deal. So you have to believe it was going to be up to about the same number of years,
Probably.
same amount of money.
Absolutely.
My feeling is that's a tough job. I just, you not only have to beat Ohio State and Michigan, now you have to beat Oregon and Washington, Southern Cal. You got to beat those guys too.
And again,
that's tough.
And I don't know if you guys know this, as has been pointed out, but Oregon's very first conference home game is against Michigan State at Autzen.
That's terrific. But that's what coaches want. They don't want the easy path. They want challenges. They want to go up against the best. And Jonathan Smith, if he can turn Oregon State around from where he took over with Gary Anderson, because they were distraught. They were a disaster. It was completely ruined as a
understand.
program.
People from the outside would say, yeah, of course, he was in the Pac-12. It's a little easier to do that in the Pac-12 than it is the Big Ten.
Well, Michigan State's a much better football program than Oregon State. It's not close. Indiana's more like the Oregon State of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I mean, just being real.
I'm just saying in the fact that, like, Michigan State wants desperately to be Ohio State and Penn and Ohio State, Michigan.
They're never going to be those schools.
They're not, though.
No.
Right?
And Oregon State would never be USC or Oregon.
The best thing they could have done was just be Oregon State, and I think that's what they did for the last 4 years with Jon Smith. Yeah. And that's why they started playing well again.
He took over the program. It's in a much better place today than when he took it over. And his school doesn't have a conference right now. I can't blame a coach for wanting to leave because his school doesn't have a conference or a future.
I'll tell you what's always scary. What's always scary to me is when you take a guy like Jonathan Smith, though, and you put him in a place like Michigan State, where you're right now in much more of a centrally located place that has recruits within that state. It's a good recruiting ground in the Midwest there. Yeah. Now he gets to get players that he couldn't get while he was at Oregon State. I think that's he's going to be good. He's going to be good.
I believe that. I really do. What's sad for Oregon now is, and I was talking with Dave Bartu on the phone last night, it's, there's a direct correlation between success of your athletic programs and school enrollment, right? So now, all of a sudden, Oregon State doesn't have a conference. Their football program is probably going to fall in some hard times. Their basketball program's in ruins right now. So they're not going to have success. They don't have a conference yet. So you're going to see school enrollment drop, and it's just going to create more problems for the state. It's a big issue. It's a major problem. It's a really difficult spot that Oregon State is in. It sucks. That's a lot of problems there. Sports programs in ruins. School enrollment's going to drop. Money issues are going to continue. And you know as well as I do that whatever conference they find themselves in, they might get a good deal, but it's not going to be the $30 million that they turned down from ESPN.
Yeah.
Tell you, man, as a Duck fan, I didn't want any of this to happen. Everyone likes to blame Duck fan. Yeah, I did not want to see any of this happen because having a good Oregon State around is absolutely fun for me and this state. This sucks.
All right, you got time to hang out the rest of the hour?
Sure. My wife will be mad, but, she'll deal.
All right.
She's used to it.
Yeah.
All right. All right, more football talk. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Brian knows coming up at the top of the hour.
Rip City Radio is looking for photos of your children with Santa, not the smiling, successful photos, the other kind that you show your child melting down like a snowman in July. Submit your photo today at ripcityradio.com for your chance to win a Visa gift card just in time to do some holiday shopping. Enter today and good luck from Mountain Timber Market, Quantum Fiber, and Rip City Radio.
You're listening to the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad on 620 Rip City Radio. Brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Listen on your free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
All right, here's a good tweet from Brett McMurphy of Action Network for you Duck fans. He says, Texas is screwed. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee has had the Longhorns behind Oregon in all 5 rankings this season, despite more top 25 wins, and has no chance to jump the Ducks if both teams win conference titles. So that pretty much takes Texas out of it. So now we know what the scenario is. We're really talking about what Georgia and Alabama, how that plays out. And that will determine the Pac-12's fate. It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and then Oregon fan needs to thank Texas, because if Texas didn't get that win and Alabama and Georgia rolled into the SEC championship game both undefeated,
that's a great point.
Whoever lost the game would probably still be in the top 4.
Send a card to Sark.
Yeah.
It is madness to talk about all these different scenarios.
It is. It's wild.
If we had a 12-team playoff, we would be just talking about potential matchups.
12-team would blow my mind. 12-team would be so good right now. I want to have the debate, like who deserves the 11 seed, guys? Like who deserves that? That's where I want to get into the real nitty-gritty and test everybody's college fandom. But also, I mean, what's that do to conference championship games, right? Because like if you're looking at the top 12 playoff, you're like, okay, well, Oregon, Washington, they're in. Like, I don't know, you lose some, you gain some, but I'm down for it. I can't wait for it.
All right, here is another point put out by McMurphy. He said number 7 Texas and number 8 Bama done. Looks like it. No team ranked lower than number 6 with 1 week to go has ever made the college football playoff. Lowest ranked teams at this point of the season in the college football playoff rankings to make the playoff. Number 6 Oklahoma in 2019. Number 6 Georgia in 2017. Number 5 Ohio State in 2022. And then number 5 Oklahoma in 2018, Alabama in 17, number 5 Michigan State in 2015, number 5 Ohio State in 2014. So
he's saying, I don't get that. He's saying Alabama's out of it? Is that what he's saying?
That's what he's saying. He's saying that Alabama, even if they beat Georgia, would not make the leap up into the playoff based on the fact that no team ranked lower than 6 has ever made the jump with 1 week to go.
So yeah, that's I don't know about that. I think it would be pretty hard to turn down the SEC champion. I mean, this is a year unlike any other, too, where so many teams are right there on the cusp or on the bubble for it. I don't know if I can buy that.
Well, I'm not saying I buy it or not. I'm just telling you what he's reporting. I hadn't thought of it in terms of those numbers. I don't know. Because when I look at Bama right now, I don't doubt that the improvement they've made throughout the year has been impressive. They haven't been more impressive in their play on the field than Oregon. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, but let's run this thing out then. Let's say Alabama beats them and they don't get to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
The SEC would get blocked out of the playoff.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't put Georgia in then because they just lost to Alabama. So they get nobody in.
No, I think Georgia would get in.
After just losing to Alabama, they get in anyway?
Yeah.
Jeez, I don't know about that.
That's the crazy part. And, like, I get what he's saying because, like, think about that. Like, so if Bama wins and Oregon wins and Texas wins, Michigan, Florida State, everyone wins. You'd have one-loss Michigan, who's already in the top 4. You'd have undefeated Florida State already in the top 4. And then you'd have one-loss Oregon, who's a champ, one-loss Texas, who's a champ, one-loss Alabama, who's a champ. And then you have to debate, is it worth it that Alabama jumps those 2 teams and gets in to leave Oregon or Texas out? That's an interesting point. It's so,
if you knock off the number 1 team, you should jump in the rankings, shouldn't you?
I absolutely get that. But at the same time, Oregon would be knocking off the number 3 team. And we could talk all day long about, oh, well, Georgia's won 30 in a row and 2-time defending champion. Well, the nature of college football, the team on the field this year is not the team that was on the field last year or the team that was on the field 2 years ago. So within each season, there's little intricacies to it. So I could see what the point he's trying to make. However, the precedent is just it's hard to believe the SEC, which as much, hype as they get from everyone, would be left out in almost any scenario.
Well, I think in that scenario, they put Georgia in and leave Bama out. Can you imagine Crimson Tide fans, how they would freak out over that scenario?
Oh, my gosh.
They would freak out. Wait a second. We just beat Georgia. They're in the playoff. We win the conference with one loss to Texas, and we're not in?
Yeah. We both have one loss, and we beat them, and we're not in, and they are.
Yeah, he's just presenting the simple fact that no team ranked lower than number 6 with 1 week to go has ever made the college football playoff. It's never happened. The problem this year is that you have a lot of really good teams from 7 up.
That's why something could happen that hasn't happened before.
Because we've never had, everything always clears itself out. And more than likely, we'll wake up on Sunday morning, Georgia wins, maybe Florida State loses, and there's no controversy. But we've never had a year where we could have so much controversy with all of these teams sitting there with one loss or undefeated with conference championships. That makes it tough. Wild. Absolutely wild. Bama winning the SEC and beating Georgia and not getting in that just doesn't compute in my brain.
No, mine either. It's Bama. What? You can't have it without Bama.
I can't imagine them putting in Georgia ahead of Alabama if they lose the conference title game to them. Like, that's really a tough one for me to wrap my mind around. But again, we've never seen it quite like this. Wow. But then again, the committee did put Cincinnati in, who was undefeated, that had no reason to be in that playoff.
Yeah. That's the tough part, man. That's why 12 teams will be so nice because, again, Washington with one loss would still have a resume and all this deserving. Ohio State's deserving of something, right? Like, those teams would be in that 12-team scenario, which makes absolute sense.
Most conferences would probably get 2 teams in.
I refuse to believe the committee's going to leave Alabama out.
I do, too.
I refuse to believe it. I don't care where they're sitting right now. If they beat Georgia and win the SEC championship, they're going to get in.
Yeah. The only question is if Georgia gets in, too. That's
the big question.
Yeah.
Yeah, if Bama wins, they're in. They'll jump them. They'll be the first team to go from 7 all the way into the playoff or wherever they're sitting right now.
It'd probably be
No, number 8. See, that's the problem. Bama's number 8. They're not number 7. No team, 6 or higher has been able to do it with 1 week to play. They go from 8 to the top 4.
It's a big win. They only have to go to number 4, realistically, right?
Yeah, so you jump 4 spots.
You put Michigan, Bama, probably FSU 3 then if they win, and then, Michigan, Georgia, FSU, and then Bama. So you get Michigan, Bama, FSU, Georgia.
This conversation alone proves that we need a 12-team playoff.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, this year is perfect ramp up for the 12-team playoff. It's like, this is why we have it.
Well, what I hate is that they have to push it off a year. Why couldn't they just...
I know. Should have gone right to it. Why not? Just go right to it. You think the TV networks would complain about that, getting those extra games? Holy cow. They should switch it tomorrow. I'm telling you, they should switch it right now.
No one will complain about that.
No.
All right, Chris Burkhardt, thank you. I haven't heard from Justin, so we look forward to hearing in the morning on Rip City Morning, 6 to 9 here in 620 Rip City Radio.
Get some sleep.
I'll check back in before I go to bed, just in case.
All right, there's Chris Burkhardt. We'll come back. Brian No, Fox Sports Radio, is going to join us and talk some ball. Rip City Radio is looking for photos of your children with Santa, not the smiling, successful photos, the other kind that you show your child melting down like a snowman in July. Submit your photo today at ripcityradio.com for your chance to win a Visa gift card just in time to do some holiday shopping. Enter today and good luck from Mountain Timber Market, Quantum Fiber, and Rip City Radio.
Human pawns, I mean loved ones, and save money. Thanks, kids. It's really worth it. Straight Talk Wireless, available at Walmart.
Get 4 lines on Silver Unlimited for $25 per line per month, plus taxes and fees. For data management practices and additional terms, visit straighttalk.com.
Hi, Scott Tom for Integrity Air, teaming up with Clackamas Service Center to collect food for those in need this holiday season. Make a food donation and get a $250 or $500 discount with purchase of a furnace or AC unit or both. Details at integrityairllc.com. CCB 203869.
Hi again, Mark Mason for the Floor Store. If visitors are coming for the holidays this year, how do your floors look? Head for the Floor Store's Home for the Holidays sale. Save 10% on materials, carpet, laminate, hardwood, or tile. There's special financing on approved credit too. No interest and paid in full in 12 months on regular monthly payments. We're open 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, 56th and Southeast Woodstock, CCB 13495. If it's under your feet, you find it at the Floor Store.
Snoop Dogg. I'm giving up smoke. I know what you think. Snoop. Smoke's kind of the whole thing. But I'm done with it. I'm done with the coffee. My clothes smelling all funky. I'm going to smoke. Solo stove, fixed fire. They take out the smoke. Now you can never know. Go smoke. Go to solostove.com. Tell the big Snoop Dogg.
Here's what you need to know. From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
All right, the latest batch of college football rankings is out. Georgia is number 1, Michigan number 2, Washington 3, Florida State is 4, and good news for Oregon, they are the first team out at 5, followed by Ohio State at 6, Texas at 7, and Alabama at 8. Wow, it is going to be a great weekend of college football. Oregon and Washington. Pac-12 title games coming up Friday night down in Vegas. 5 o'clock kick on ABC. Oregon opened as a 7.5-point favorite. That lines up to 9.5. The big game, 1 o'clock on CBS. The SEC title game, Bama and Georgia from Atlanta. Georgia right now sits as a 6-point favorite. Contract terms have been released for Jon Smith, who's now at Michigan State. 7-year deal starting at $7.25 million a year. The Trailblazers get a couple of days off after a big win in Indy last night. They'll take on Cleveland Thursday. Tip at 4, game day at 1:30 here on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
Oh, yeah, you know it when we bring out the death metal that only one person could be coming on. Fox Sports Radio, our good friend Brian O. What's up, Pino?
What is going on? My guys, Chad Doing, Dwight Jaynes, and I don't even know what Shaq Diesel's got queued up over here, but I like it. I'm like, there's some angry energy going on. Don't you just feel angrier? It feels great to release all that, doesn't it?
Dude, I'm feeling great right now. My Broncos have won 5 straight, and we're getting ready for a massive weekend of ball between college football and the NFL, man. This is a great time of the year, brother.
It is. It's a great time of the year, and it's also a little sad. Little sad when we get to the end where it's like, this is the week before Army-Navy.
I know.
And before all the bowl games, and it's like, how does this happen? We still have a decent portion of the NFL regular season, and you're like, yeah, the college football regular season, with the exception of Navy and Army, it's done. It's over.
It goes by too quick, man. It's so awesome that we just get lost up in the madness, and before you know it, it's like, wait a second, bowl games? No!
I know it. I know. It's bittersweet, right? Because some of these bowl games are going to be a lot of fun, not just the playoff games, but maybe you see LSU and Notre Dame potentially. That'd be a lot of fun. But it's the end, man. It's crazy how fast it goes by every single year.
All right. We'll get to the NFL in a moment, but we were just hot and heavy on the playoff rankings. Oregon and Washington Friday night down in Vegas. Right now the Ducks are a 9.5-point favorite. What's your take on the Pac-12 title game?
Man, it's like two teams trending in different directions, where if you look at Washington, they're winning, but they're winning ugly. You know, they're surviving the Apple Cup. You got to go for 4th and 1 in your own territory, and then they're like, yeah, we're in field goal range, but let's air it out and maybe have an interception on our hands over here. I don't know what they were doing after the 4th and 1 conversion, but they've survived. It hasn't been a work of art. They weren't great against Stanford, obviously weren't great against Arizona State and Oregon. Man, they have been a well-oiled machine, man. It's not just offensively with Bo Nix, Heisman favorite. It's defensively. What they were able to do against Oregon State, holding that team to 53 yards rushing, was like, wow. Oregon's just playing defense on another level compared to Washington. So I can't wait to see how that Pac-12 championship game unfolds. That's a lot of points. If we're talking gambling, Chad, here, that's a lot of points heading into the game. But, man, I would expect Oregon probably early on to have as much of a touchdown lead. And it's one of those things, if you're holding a Washington plus 9.5 ticket and all of a sudden it's, 10-3, 13-3, you're like, oh, gosh, I don't know about this plus 9.5 anymore. But that should be a fun one.
Yeah, I don't know what to think of the game right now. I'm confused because the number's out of whack. I'm not sure if Penix is 100%, so I'm with you. It's a dicey proposition on the gambling front.
Man, it is. It is. But what a season for the Ducks. And that's crazy where they're right there. They've got a body of work strong enough where if they win, they're in. And if you think about a team like Texas, think about that, Chad, where they just lost to Oklahoma. Final minute, lost to Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel with the clutch touchdown pass. That's their only blemish. And Texas, even if they win their conference championship, they're going to need a lot of help to somehow sneak in there. I don't know if they can. I don't know if there is a legitimate way that they can get in there. And they only lost to Oklahoma. It's wild how it's worked out.
Yeah, but Brian, what's going to happen if Alabama beats Georgia?
Well, I would think Bama would get in because they just lost to Texas, but that's your opening, Dwight, to full-blown chaos. Let's say Alabama and Texas win. What do? Texas has the head-to-head win against Alabama. That's got to carry a lot of weight. But what other win does Texas have that rivals Bama beating Georgia, right? So that would be one interesting argument if that's the scenario we have. I feel like every single year we have these what-if scenarios, and typically, Dwight, I just roll my eyes it's not going to be that chaotic. But this year feels different, where there is – I don't know how it's going to shake out, but I know there are going to be one or two teams that have playoff-worthy resumes that are not going to be one of the 4 teams in the playoff. That's the way it feels like this season.
Let me ask you this, too. Have you ever seen a situation like this 9.5-point spread where one team has one team's got 3 top 25 wins, the other team's got 1. The one team has beaten the other team, and the one team's undefeated, the other one's got the 1 loss, and yet it's a 9.5 spread. To me, it seems crazy. I mean, I think Oregon's going to win the game. That's a lot of points, like you said.
Yeah, it is a lot of points. And it's just really, look, man, the season is so long. I mean, you go back, that Oregon-Washington game, that was 7 games ago. Think about it. Both teams have played 6 games since then. So there's a lot that has changed between both teams where, look at Washington, common opponent, right? Washington on the road against Oregon State, it's a freaking dogfight. And Washington survives. They win by 2 points. The next week, Beavs are on the road against Oregon, and the Ducks just put it on them. Boat race city, And so I think that's in the back of the minds of the bookmakers right there is where are these 2 teams here and now? And a lot has changed between both of them since that time that Washington won. But I hear you, Dwight. I get it. I can't think of another scenario off the top of my head that rivals it. It probably has happened before, but I can't think of anything that comes to mind right away. But it is pretty wild where Washington won, and on a neutral field, now they're 9.5-point dogs. But just when you think, oh, man, this is my lucky day, that's when Vegas will tap you on the shoulder and do the Dikembe. No, it's not that easy to take our money here.
Yeah. All right, we're talking with Brian O, Fox Sports Radio. Let's talk some NFL. Broncos are at the Texans this weekend. Denver's won 5 straight. Houston coming off a tough loss to Jacksonville. This game is critical in the AFC wildcard race. What's your take here?
Yeah, man, it's hats off to your Broncos first off, Chad. You think about that defense. This just shows you how long of a season it is. The Broncos defense, it wasn't just giving up 70 points to the Dolphins. 70 points in one game. It was the beginning of the season. It was like the first month of the season. They couldn't do anything defensively. And they're way better now. They forced a lot of takeaways. They forced 9 takeaways in 2 games. That's a crazy amount right there. And they've been able to keep that going. So, man, shout out to Vance Joseph getting that team right defensively. And now all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, they're 3.5-point underdogs on the road. That's a lot of points in the NFL. To get 3 in the hook, I know C.J. Stroud has been fantastic as a rookie QB. But the way Denver is playing, they absolutely have a puncher's chance, not just with the points, but to win that game. I think a lot of it just comes down to how can Denver slow down that Houston passing attack. And if they can keep C.J. Stroud relatively in check, I think the Broncos, they could have enough offense to win that game. But It's amazing we're even talking about Denver and the playoff chase based on how that season started for them. It's a minor miracle they're even at this place right now.
Okay, 49ers at the Eagles. This game I can't wait to see. The rematch from last year, conference championship game. Who do you like in this game?
Man, it's one of these where the first thing I think about is the Eagles have been outgained, get this, by at least 98 yards in 4 straight games. And, of course, they've won all of those games, you know? They got outgained by the Bills by 127 yards. That's a lot. Yeah. And it's just a matter of time until that catches up with you. Think about the Steelers at the beginning of the year. They were outgained, in the first 9 games? And it's like, how did they have a winning record? Eventually, that's going to catch up with you. And that's the first thing I think of with the Eagles is you can't just get steadily outgained in yardage and keep winning games. They're 10-1. That's unbelievable. So I wonder if this is the spot where it does catch up with them. And then my next thought is, but I got to back Purdy if that's the case. You know what I mean? And look, man, Purdy has been pretty good. I'll give him his flowers. He's been pretty good, Dwight. He's pretty good quarterback in the regular season, but I'm not one of these, Purdy Palooza fanboys out there that gets all hot and bothered because of a nice Week 11 performance. I got to see it on the biggest stages, and that's playoff time. I got to see it in the NFC title game or the Super Bowl. That's the stage I need to see it on, and I don't think it's unfair to have doubts until he succeeds in those type of situations. But going into Week 13,
I'm not sure what's going on. This is wild. We got sounders all over the place.
Holy cow.
Michael Shacker is trying to sabotage you, Brian. No, we can't let that happen.
It's okay. It's all right. We just keep it flowing, But, I mean, look, going into Week 13, Purdy has played really, really well. And based on how the Eagles are trending, it just feels like they're losing a little bit of steam. They've played some tough games. And, look, man, this might be the week it catches up with them. There's more motivation for the Niners based on how the NFC title game went last season. So that sort of tips the scales in their favor heading into the game a bit, I feel, as well.
And how much do you think the Chargers regret not hiring Sean Payton and still having Brandon Staley right now? When are they going to fire this guy? Seriously, bro?
I thought it might have happened if the game was a little uglier against the Ravens. I thought it could have been right after that game. And we got the NFL curveball where it's like, nope, it's Frank Reich. And you're like, what? This is his first year in Carolina. But okay, whatever. But, yeah, I hear you. As far as Staley goes, look, man, he's a dead man walking. There's no way he can survive this season. That's a team that, look at all the talent they have. And look at their record, dude. It's obnoxious that this is a 4-7 football team with as much talent as they have. So, yeah, if it doesn't happen during the season, it's absolutely happening right after the season for Brandon Staley.
Okay, all these great quarterbacks out there that are going to be draftable this year. Tell me, Brian, who should be tanking right now? Should some of these teams be? I mean, honestly, Belichick wants to get these victories for his win total, I know. But shouldn't the Patriots be tanking right now?
Well, they might be.
Who could tell, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Who can tell with them? But, I think it's cool that the NFL, there are far more conspiracy theories about tanking than tanking actually taking place.
Mm-hmm.
You can find a few instances where that's probably been the case. But, man, you look at Arizona. Arizona would be a prime tank-type team. And yet, Kyler Murray's back from ACL surgery. He's on the field. He's balling out. You know what I mean? Like, they're trying to win games. They're 2-10. They'd be much better off tanking and resetting with one of these top quarterback prospects. But they're trying to win games. As ugly as it's been for the Patriots, they're still trying to win games. So I hear you as far as that goes. But teams just typically try as hard as they can and let the chips fall where they may, even if it costs them a top quarterback prospect. But that's what we see way more times than not.
You know, Brian, you mentioned Frank Reich getting the axe this week, 11 games into his tenure with Carolina. I don't know if you caught the David Tepper press conference, but this guy might be a little bit crazy. He never gave a reason for why he fired Reich, but he doubled down and said he has full confidence in the decision to take Bryce Young over C.J. Stroud.
Well, look, man, that's what he has to say. I just don't believe him.
Yeah.
And really, how could you? How could you believe him? Look at the difference between those guys. It's not just all season long. Think about the same week Bryce Young threw 2 pick sixes and 3 interceptions total against the Colts. You had C.J. Stroud throw 5 touchdown passes and for 470 yards against Tampa. That's insane. So if you could, off the record, say, all right, trade straight up, no additional picks, you could have C.J. Stroud for Bryce Young. Would you do it? Of course. You'd be out of your mind not to do that based on how both of them have played so far. And anybody who's trying to talk you into, well, it's early and, well, things can change. Yeah, okay, but what are the odds? What are the odds that Bryce Young ends up being the better pro than C.J. Stroud? Not very good right now. And how about the reports that Frank Reich might not have been totally on board with taking Bryce Young number 1? Imagine, guys, if that's the case and you're getting run out of town when you're the one who's saying, no, I think we should go with Stroud. And they're like, nope, overruled. And then you get Bryce Young and you're seeing CJ just ball out. That is as bitter as it gets if that is the case with Frank Reich.
Okay, I'm confused a little bit about this team. Tell me who the Dallas Cowboys are.
Well, they're the bum slayers right now. They're beating up on bum teams. I thought the Dolphins only did that, but that's what the Cowboys have done. And look, I get that you would be skeptical that they're the real deal, right? It's a little bit like Purdy. If it's an individual player, until he does great things against great teams on a huge stage, I've got my doubts. Well, the same can be said about Dallas, and their road is about to get a lot tougher. They get Seattle, Philly, Buffalo, the Dolphins, Detroit. You have all those teams with winning records except the Bills, who are 500, but that's a tough road right there. So we'll get a little bit more information about the Cowboys. A couple of primetime games coming up here in a row. So, look, man, they're capable. They've got the talent, but they are just boat racing bad teams right now. And we'll see what happens when they face the big boys, because they've got the talent to get it done. But it's one of those, until they do it, most people are going to be skeptical about them getting it done when it really matters.
And we're talking with Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio here on the Rip City Drive. Dwight and I are having this conversation in the AFC. You've got 3 teams that are basically vying for that all-important number 1 seed in the first-round bye: Jacksonville, Baltimore, and Kansas City. Who would you give the nod to right now to get the number 1 seed?
I didn't hear Miami in that mix. I'm checking. Like, sometimes, like, the right
thanks to my
side
Denver
of my
Broncos, you guys now have a win against a winning team.
That's true. Yeah, there you go. Sometimes the right side of my headphones kind of like clicks off. So I don't know if you said Miami when it clicked off there for a second,
My
but
bad.
it didn't sound like you included the Dolphins there. But look, I still think that Kansas City is the class of the AFC. I know Baltimore. Look, man, I like their team overall. They present some problems. Their defense has played really well. They've put up points. Right? Lamar and that offense, they've done really well. But look, man, I've talked this, the Lamar, think about this too. The fan bases that support Lamar Jackson and Chad, our guy Brock Purdy, are very similar. Don't you think? Where I call it the Purdy police. So have you ever gotten pulled over and it didn't go that great? Maybe the guy was a little bit gruff, and you're like, oh, man, that's how I feel with these Purdy backers.
Yeah.
I've gotten pulled over by more Purdy policemen than I would care to, where they just will not freaking let it go.
They're relentless.
Dude, they have all the time in the world. Did you see Week 12? Did you see Week 12, Brian? Are you willing to admit you were wrong? And it's like, no, I'm not. Let them do this when it matters in the playoffs, and then I'll happily take everything back. Until then, no. I still feel the same way, but with Lamar and Purdy, the people that have backed those guys, they do it so relentlessly. And they have such long memories of when Purdy was doubted, when Lamar was doubted, and maybe he should be a wide receiver and all of it. I still think it's comparable. Lamar has been electric. He's a former MVP. He's put up numbers. He's done great things in the regular season. Come playoff time, leaves a lot to be desired. A lot. More interceptions than touchdowns, more losses than wins. Some bad moments there where they're a 1 seed, they lose to Tennessee. He throws a pick 6 against Buffalo to lose a low-scoring game. Like, there's a lot on his playoff resume that is not good. So with all that being said, as great as Baltimore has been in the regular season, I got to see them do it in the playoffs before I believe in them. I don't have blind faith. So based on history and the way Lamar has underperformed, I would take Mahomes and the Chiefs all day long until proven otherwise.
Okay, I want to ask you this, Brian. You spent enough time here to know. Can you imagine how decimated Oregon State football fans are right now?
Oh, man. You're right, Dwight. That's a rough ending. You're so close to beating Washington. You get whooped by Oregon, and immediately after that, Jonathan Smith is headed to Spartyville, and you're left with one other conference team and uncertainty with the Pac-12, right? It's you and Washington State. Yeah, you're right. And look, I know the Beavs fans, they don't want to hear this, but it's the truth. This is the perfect time for Jonathan Smith to go elsewhere. I mean, goodness, you look at what is Oregon State? What is the Pac-12 other than complete uncertainty going forward? You know, you might hook up with the Mountain West and make the new Pac-12. Oh, yeah, that's dripping with sexiness right there, right? And you get all this money to go to the Big Ten. And, yeah, it's a smart decision for Jonathan Smith. Think about that. He's leaving his alma mater. Like he started at Oregon State and beat up on my Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the bowl game. I'll never forget that, right?
Yeah.
This is the perfect time for him to leave. And to your point, Dwight, it just shows you how dejected you have to be as a Beavs fan right now. What do you have to cling on to that gets you fired up? Not much.
Brian, do you think he'll win there? Can you win there?
It's definitely going to be an uphill battle. But he wanted Oregon State. Think about what Oregon State was like before he took over and really jump-started that program. They were freaking brutal.
Yeah.
And he got them to be very respectable. That's not easy to do. And the Big Ten, look, when you got 4 Pac-12 schools going there, and we're not talking about like the Stanfords of the world. We're talking about the big boys going there, right? That's going to be tough to get to the part where no divisions and you're one of the only 2 teams left standing at the end of the season to be in the conference championship game. There is a lot of competition to get in Sparty's way. So it's going to be really, really tough there. But it was really tough at Oregon State, and he passed that test with flying colors. So I wouldn't count him out, but it's definitely going to be uphill. There's no doubt.
All right, Brian, simple advice for you. As you pointed out, football season is nearing the end, so make sure you embrace all of the action on Friday night, on Saturday, and this weekend, and just enjoy it, man. Continue to enjoy the ride. It's not over yet.
I know. It's not done yet, and this is a tasty slate of games this weekend, right? Very, very tasty. We get it started on Friday. I feel weird with no Maction. I'm like, what am I doing tonight? There's no Maction going on? Are you kidding me? Like,
Gambling hates that.
Oh, hates it, but hello hoops, you know? Hello hoops. But, hey, Pac-12 Championship Friday. Get some good games on Saturday. Georgia and Alabama can't wait for it. And then, man, Niners, Eagles, and all the NFL games. It's going to be a really good weekend. There's no doubt.
All right, brother. We appreciate it, man. You're the man. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll catch up soon.
All right, man. Good hanging with you guys, as always. Enjoy the night, and I'll catch up with you soon, as always.
You got it. There's Brian No, Fox Sports Radio here on the show. I think I like the 49ers to win the game this weekend. Going to Philadelphia, they have all the motivation. That game means so much more to them, and I think they're catching Philadelphia at the right time. So I think the 49ers will get the win on Sunday, but I still think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to end up with the number 1 seed in the NFC. That's kind of how I see that playing out.
Yeah, they should. They have enough of a lead.
But a big game, because if the 49ers get that, they're going to have the tie break, and we'll see how things continue to play out. But the 49ers have some tough games remaining on the schedule. But that's a big-time football game. And I think it's important for Brock Purdy, even though it's regular season, to showcase that, hey, I can go into a tough place like Philly and lead this team to victory. That could be key for him, just to go in there and do something like that. Because that's, Philadelphia is no joke. Even though, as we pointed out, they haven't played their best football, to go in there and beat a team like that that's so physical at the line of scrimmage, that'd be good for him.
Not many places tougher to play than Philly, too.
No, it's tough. And we saw the conditions this weekend. The weather wasn't great. Yeah. But the Eagles, they found a way to get it done. We'll see how things continue to shake out. But, man, the 49ers, ever since that 3-game losing streak, they get some guys back healthy. They're playing with a determination and a purpose. They're not messing around right now.
Yeah, I like their defense, too. Their defense is really tough.
Man, they hit hard.
Yeah.
I mean, they really roughed up the Seahawks in that game on Thursday.
Their linebackers are amazing.
Oh.
And, edge rushers, holy cow.
Yeah, they come after you. All right, that's going to do it for us. We have Seattle Kraken hockey coming up for you next.
Yes!
All right, I'm going to head off to the doctor. You have yourself a fine evening, Godfather.
Yeah, I'm going to erase that picture from you if you don't mind.
If you want, I can send you more pictures later.
I might take it and show it to my wife.
All right, you guys have a good night. We'll catch you tomorrow. Seattle Kraken hockey is coming up next here on 620 Rip City Radio.